Welcome, 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 everybody. Y'all, we are so delighted to be with each one of you. Marcella and I have been so excited about this. You know, this is the beautiful thing about the polka dot community is I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and Marcella lives in Northern California. And not only does she live in Northern California, she lives in this tiny little suburb of the Bay Area, which is where my in-laws were for 15 years. And so I love how the universe is just knitting our stories together, and we're finding ways to connect with one another and to be with one another. And so thank you for this amazing opportunity for us to come together, for us to figure out ways that we can utilize nonviolence. So Marcella and I are coming at nonviolence from a little bit different lenses. However, and it's so appropriate in this group, if you think about a diamond, and so if you think about a diamond and that diamond represents nonviolence, one facet of that diamond is nonviolence as defined by Martin Luther King Jr. And another facet is as defined by Dr. Rosenberg. And so we're going to be sharing with you the ways where we are deeply rooted in nonviolence and how that shows up in our life and what that means and what that looks like. So thank you for saying yes to this opportunity. For those of you that are live, if you will please turn on your camera because we want that energy. We want to be able to see you. And so thank you to each one of you who are live and also those that are watching the recording, that you're interested in learning about what does it mean to be nonviolent, to be love-centered, in our words and our thoughts, etc. So I'm going to dive right in. One mission that I want to start off with is at Love Revolution, which is my own personal company. Our mission is teaching 8 billion people to love 8 billion people. And what's happening right now is people are really resonating with that. And I love that, pun intended. However, there are people who will say, okay, Elizabeth, I'm good with loving 7.9 billion people. But those people, and they kind of do their hand over there, those people, I am not going to love them. And I don't want them to love me. And the thing is, when we decide in our cognitive choices that there are some that are in and some that are out, even if we decide the overarching abundant majority are in, but these people are out, we're still sowing division. And so if we think about love as being one of those aspects where we are sowing seeds, well, we are, a friend of mine calls me Johnny Appleseed. And so I absolutely love that because we're out sowing seeds. And we're not going to sow a seed and reap a seed, right? We sow a seed and reap a harvest. Now, let me tell you, in Marcella's section, she's going to be sharing, all about nonviolent communication. And y'all know, I'm going to get this incorrect and she's going to correct me, but it's like dirt is gold, gold is dirt. And so, she is a seed sower. And so it is just so amazing how the universe is bringing us together. And so in terms of thinking about Kingian nonviolence, so the philosophy and methodology as defined by Martin Luther King Jr., at the King Center, and I don't know if many of you, let me share this aspect of my story too. So I don't know how many of you are aware that I grew up in Athens, Georgia. The King Center is in Atlanta, Georgia. It's about a 90-minute drive. And because of my skin tone and because of my ethnicity and because of, being able to be in a very white-centric bubble in the South, I was 48 years old before I even knew that the King Center existed. There are people that are shocked to hear that. Until I encountered the King Center in person, I had never even read anything by Dr. King. The only thing I really knew about him was the I Have a Dream speech. And I was taught implicitly and explicitly to be colorblind. We just don't see color. Kumbaya, everybody just gets along, la-di-da. And I really went through a process of what I call unlearning and relearning. There was a lot that needed to go into that. And so when I first encountered the King Center in April of 2018, so here we are recording this in April of 2025, And 7 years ago this month was the very first time I encountered the King Center or Martin Luther King's writings and teachings. And when I tell you, and this is not hyperbole, when I tell you it transformed me from the inside out and altered every single facet of my life. Again, thinking about that diamond, every single facet of my life is now positively and love centeredly impacted by Kingian nonviolence. And the definition that we use of nonviolence is that nonviolence is a love centered way of thinking, speaking, acting, and engaging. And it leads to personal and then cultural and then societal transformation. Now, all of this you can find at the King Center's website, thekingcenter.org. So you can see the definition, you can see the 6 principles, you can see the 6 steps. Everything that we do I'm a certified trainer now, everything that we do as a practitioner of Kingian nonviolence is rooted in those 6 principles. And every one of those are rooted in a very simple, but not easy concept, which is love, love-centered. The beautiful thing about love, particularly through a Kingian nonviolence perspective and through my own personal business, is that it's not emotional. It's not mamby-pamby. It's not weak. It's not passive. Love is very active. It's very cognitive. It is, I see you, you have dignity, you have worth, you have a heartbeat. And so it's so easy. It truly is so easy for me to say, I love all 8 billion people on the planet. I wish that you all could have heard the amazing prayer that Marcella said over this session because it literally brought tears to my eyes. It was so absolutely beautiful. And so she has a higher power. I have a higher power. Many of you have a faith tradition. And for me, one of the things that I will say is I can never look into the eyes of someone that my higher power does not love. Now, that doesn't mean that people, necessarily worship the same higher power as me. It just means that if you're here on the planet, the universe says you have a job to do here. You have a purpose here. The universe needs you at this time and place to be here to share your highest form of genius, to share what it is in your perfection and your zone of genius that the rest of the world needs. What happens is many, 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 many times we are living so far below what our highest selves are, and we're just fighting over things that don't need to be fought over. We're fighting each other instead of looking at issues and saying, that issue needs to be addressed. We have a congresswoman named, and I have to look at it because her name sometimes is difficult for me to say, but it's Pramila Jayawardena. And she's a congresswoman, and she's doing these things called resistance labs. And they're all rooted and grounded in Kingian nonviolence. And so folks are showing up by the thousands on Zoom and in person. She had to turn people away this weekend because it's looking at Dr. King's teachings, Dr. King's philosophy and methodology. Think about what they went through in Selma on Bloody Sunday. Think about what they went through in Birmingham to achieve everything that they did. And she's just really using it in 2025. It's not like it's something that was good back in the 60s and it's not effective now. It's every bit as effective. There are times, I always say every book by Dr. King is my favorite. However, the one that I always recommend is Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community. Dr. King wrote that in 1967, and it feels like he wrote it in April of 2025. Because that is very much our choice right now. Where do we go? Are we going to have a community, which community is that interconnectedness? Community is people coming together and understanding that what I do impacts Marcella, what Marcella does impacts Laura, what Laura does impacts me. And all 3 of us, and how powerful that is. And then you expand that out to 8 billion people, that we're all interconnected. I think sometimes we forget that when we are saying yes to policies, when we're saying yes to certain situations, when we're saying yes to, oh yeah, like that group of people, let's just go ahead and we'll just get rid of them. We'll just, bomb them or get rid of them. That what we're saying is we're going to get rid of Elizabeth because we're all interconnected. And it's beautiful to watch the power of love, come into each one of our lives. And so, in my own personal business with Love Revolution, Martin Luther King says, a social movement that moves merely people is a revolt, but a social movement that transforms people and institutions is a revolution. Love is revolutionary. You joining this call today, whether it's live or you're watching the replay, you even tuning into that, this is revolutionary because it is going to be transformative. I am evidence that it transforms from the inside out. And I bet each one of you have a story that's rooted in love that you can say, oh yeah, that was transformative. Absolutely. So in my own personal business, Leading with Love, love stands for letting others voluntarily evolve and letting ourselves voluntarily evolve. Y'all, there was this graphic today on social media, and I immediately looked at it and I was like, ooh, it was literally cringeworthy to me. That was my first thought. My second thought, that was my first thought, cringeworthy. My very second thought was 10 years ago, I would have shared that graphic. We all need to give ourselves the space and the time to let others voluntarily evolve and let ourselves voluntarily evolve. Again, nonviolence and love, it is so completely transformational. So many of you know that I use the grit blueprint in all of my programs. And so, of course, with Leading with Love, I also have the grit blueprint. So the G is gratitude. So when we're leading with love, when we're choosing this, we're saying, I am grateful for, which means it's not a have to do this. It's I get to do this. It's I have to do the dishes. I get to do the dishes. I have a friend that is really, really, really struggling in his job. And the culture is not great at the workplace. The tasks are not great. When I say the culture, there's just a lot of fighting, a lot of negativity. And also, I know that there are hundreds, if not thousands of people that would be very thankful for that job. And so what my friend says is not, I got to go to the job or I have to go to the job, but I get to go to the job, even though there are some negatives about it. There's some gratitude in that and how important it is to express gratitude. The R is responsibility. Is that mine to carry or is that not? Now, one of the things that's happened with me, especially in terms of nonviolence, is because it's helped me see this interconnectedness. There are times that I can find myself getting indignant about a situation, getting upset about a situation, really thinking that's not great for everybody. When I began realizing, there are people that they're not seeing that it's not necessarily good for them. In other words, there are times that it is my responsibility to speak up, and there are times that it is not. And because I have a higher power, it's my higher power who often directs me in that. Because I do not want y'all to hear me say this. I do not have to RSVP. Thank you. Yes, I will attend to every fight that I'm invited to. It's not my responsibility to fight every fight. I have this one great friend, and she's a dear, dear friend of mine. And quite honestly, y'all, we probably agree on like 98% of topics. And to be perfectly honest, sometimes when I'm with her, I leave feeling a little bit depleted. Like I don't meet a stranger. I develop rapport really, really easily with a whole lot of people. And oftentimes I leave feeling depleted. And I was thinking about this and I was like, we agree on 98%. Like where's the disconnect? And what I finally realized is she puts a tremendous amount of energy on fighting against what she's against. For me, my responsibility, what me and my higher power are saying is that's not my responsibility to do that. What I'm being called to do is adamantly, fervently, gleefully saying, this is what I'm for, and putting my energy into what I'm for. Do you see the difference? Now, I'm not saying that because she's probably doing what her higher power is asking her to do. So you have to figure out what is your responsibility. The I is interconnection. That's the I in all of my programs. And it's this idea that, as Dr. King said, that we're all tied together in a network of mutuality. And that I, Elizabeth, can't be all I am to be until you, Marcella, are all you are ought to be. And you can't be all you are ought to be until I am all I am supposed to be. Do you understand? And so it's not if people are living well below their highest selves that we can get to the beloved community. No, we need to all be in our highest selves. And nonviolence, Kingian nonviolence is a way to do that. Rosenberg's nonviolence is a way to do that. Marcella's going to get into that in just a few minutes. The T in the grit blueprint is the power of three. Because y'all, we can't do it by ourselves. So even if you're leading with love in your business and you think about who is your best referral source, your best referral source is a former client, right? So there's you, there's the former client, then the former client is referring somebody to you. That is the power of three. If I say to Marcella, hey, will you connect me with so-and-so? And she says, yeah, I'll think about it. Or yeah, I'll do that. Well, great. And then she might get back with me and she'll say, hey, here's somebody that's interested in debt-free degree, and here's their name and number. Thank you. That's powerful. I appreciate that, Marcella. How much more powerful, though, is it that when Marcella takes the time to go into LinkedIn and send a three-way message, or go into text and send a three-way message, or into email, send a three-way message? How much more powerful is the power of three? One of the most pivotal, I mean, it was like a lightning bolt moment, April of 2018, sitting at the King Center, discovering the power of interconnection, discovering that independence is a myth. And y'all, again, I was 48 years old. I had been raised that independence was absolutely what we needed to do. It was a dog eat dog world, and I got to get mine. And that we had a very limited amount. And so the more I could get, the more that was good for me, which meant it was, too bad, so sad, because it was less for you. But that's okay, because I was getting mine. The power of three and understanding interconnection and nonviolence, and ultimately the power of love. In the last 7 years, my life, my job, my business, my marriage, my relationships, everything is exponentially more beautiful and more powerful and more love-centered because of my work at the Martin Luther King Center. We each have 168 hours a week. And I understand that there's some quantum physics out there, people out there, and I totally get that. And I also understand that sometimes the universe bends time. I totally understand that. But if we just say that each one of us is given 168 hours a week, if you study an hour a day of something, that's 7 hours a week, that's 4%. An hour a day is 4% of your day. I choose to spend an hour a day studying Dr. King, studying Kingian nonviolence, studying this love-centered philosophy, because in and of myself, it's not something that necessarily would become second nature. It is a little more now because of, years of study, but being love-centered is not necessarily the first nature. And also it is who we were made to be. It's the universe gets in and they go, oh, love's not going to work. Love is stupid. Love is so weak and passive. It's not powerful. It's not going to work. That's a lie. You know what doesn't work? Violence, division, hatred. We've tried all of that. Y'all, we've given it a valiant effort to make violence work, to make division work, to make polarization work. And it is not working. And so our challenge, our invitation is love, letting others voluntarily evolve, letting ourselves voluntarily evolve, embracing a love-centered, nonviolent philosophy. And that concludes my section on Kingian nonviolence and being love-centered. And I cannot wait to listen to Marcella and dive in deeper with Dr. Rosenberg. Marcella.
Wow, Dr. Roz, that was phenomenal. I was getting goosebumps the whole time. I really appreciate all that you shared, and love always wins.
Always wins.
Love always wins.
Every
I'll share
time.
a quick personal story for myself. It was a few years ago. I had gone to a murder mystery party. Several friends of ours, we like to get together in these murder mystery parties. They're a lot of fun. Anyways, after the party, we all went out afterwards dancing at a local bar that had a live band. And so we were there, and it was kind of like during COVID time. And I wanted to go outside, get some fresh air. Plus, I love to dance, so I was getting extra hot. And I'm out there, and this group of folks came over to me, and we started talking because I was all dressed up. And I got to be honest, I kind of looked, I looked a little crazy, but I had a wig on and some silly clothes on. And one guy came up to me, he's like, where are you from? Or where'd you come from? I can't remember exactly. I said, well, I just came from a murder mystery party. And then I could tell he had been drinking quite a bit. And he got in my face a little more and he said, yeah, but where are you from? I was like, well, I'm from the area, but I was just at a murder mystery party. Well, where are you from? And he kept getting more and more aggressive and intense and in my face. And it was
Wow.
like, oh, wow. And this guy's drunk and I'm by myself and there's all these other people here with him. And then
Yeah.
love came over me. That's all I can explain what happened. Love came over me. And the
Mm.
next words out of my mouth were, brother, I love you. Can I
Oh,
have a hug? And he just like, it's like I hit him over the head. He
yes.
just stopped in his tracks. He's like, yeah, 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 yeah. And then I gave him a hug and I turned to everyone else and said, blessings to you all, and just walked away.
Yeah.
And so, we have a
Over of
choice
love.
in every moment to be the love
Yes. Yes.
or something else. And the something else, like you said, isn't working.
Yeah.
So, a little bit about myself. I'm an agape licensed spiritual practitioner. And just going through that process to become a practitioner required a tremendous amount of just deep growth work. And looking at myself and where I wasn't bringing love to myself, to my relationships, to whatever in my life that I felt like wasn't going how I wanted it to. And along this path, I also found nonviolent communication,
Mm.
which was created by Dr. Rosenberg, who you mentioned. And that has been powerfully transformative for myself and getting in connection with myself, as well as connecting with others, especially the people who I'm in relationship with, especially my husband. So I'll share another little story with you guys. Story of an old couple who were married for 60 years. And the husband and wife, they were always very open to sharing, and they never had any separate secrets except for one thing. The wife had a shoebox in her closet that she told her husband, just don't open that shoebox. I'll share anything else with you, just don't open this shoebox. So he didn't. Like I said, they've been married for 60 years, and now the wife was finding herself in not so good of health, and she was bedridden, and it was kind of end of days type of situation. So they were getting their affairs in order, and the husband finally went into the closet and brought out the shoebox and brought it to her bedside. And she said, okay, let's go ahead and look at what's in the shoebox. And see, he opened the shoebox, and inside the shoebox was $95,000 and two crocheted dolls. And he's looking at it like, what is this? Honey, when the wife said, when we got married, my grandmother told me, if I ever got angry at you, to not yell and scream and fight, but to go crochet a doll instead. And so the husband was feeling really great about himself, like, oh wow, the wife only crocheted two dolls in all these 60 years that we were married. That's amazing. She said, oh honey, no. The $95,000 was from all the dolls that I sold over the time.
Ah,
I love that story because it's really just an opportunity for me to remember that I can turn my anger, turn my upset into something beautiful,
mhm,
into abundance. So we are truly blessed, like I said, in every moment to choose how we want to show up, to be present to the moment. And that's where nonviolent communication starts to come in. And really, for me, freedom comes from the acceptance of life that is present in the moment. And when we start to bring in nonviolent communication around that, being present to the life that is there is instead of, okay, let's say I'm having an argument and I'm really angry or upset, I can stop in that moment and say, wait a second, am I angry and upset by this person and what they're doing? I think I am because my mind is going to judgments about them. They're wrong, they're bad, they're whatever. All these stories that I have in my mind and programs that are not helpful. And so then that triggers me to be angry, and then I it can spiral from there, as we probably know. Or I can pause and I can take a deep breath and I can be present to what's alive in me. Okay, I'm feeling angry. Why am I feeling angry? Because they said this thing. Well, what about that is making me angry? Well, maybe it's getting to the deeper issue of what needs in me do I have that are not being met by this situation? So we'll go through a little exercise with this to play with it a little bit more, but that's our opportunity is to get in touch with what's alive in me, what's alive in this present moment, and how can I communicate those needs and those feelings in a way that will help us get our needs met on both sides. Instead of we jump right to the strategy, like, husband, go do the dishes for me, or do the dishes. Well, we're not explaining my needs behind you doing the dishes. Maybe I need, some balance and order in my life. And I would really feel great appreciation to help you if you could help me with those needs. So, compassionate communication is really like riding a surfboard. We get in touch with the energy that is present and we get to flow with it. And taking that choice in every conversation, taking that exquisite risk of staying present to what's alive in the moment is so powerful. And it gives us the power to choose to be present for life rather than get stuck in all the stories, in all the judgments and everything that then that brings up, again, the anger and whatnot. So reminding ourselves, the stimulus is not necessarily the cause of the anger. So someone says something, that's the stimulus. But the cause of the anger, the true cause of it is our thought process around what is happening with that person or what they're doing or these people or whatever the case may be. So we get to look deeper and closer at that. And my belief is if we start with compassion for ourselves, it can then help us be more compassionate for others. So again, we'll get into a little practice with that as well. We just have to remember that love always heals and love is always here. When we get on the surfboard, we get to wake up from any sense of separateness. And through love, we get to experience the oneness. Just as the ocean is always loving the waves that are a part of it, love is always loving us. We are one with it. We get to let in love and stay present with love and then be love. If we are so filled to overflowing with love, then nothing outside of us can knock us off of this quote unquote surfboard because we're already filled up. Our needs for love are already met. And we have that power to allow ourselves to meet our own needs. We don't have to get it from outside of ourselves. And I think that's a huge part of, this fighting and this struggle of trying to get needs met outside of ourselves is because we're not even stopping to even look at what are our needs and what can I do to meet my own needs. Such a powerful practice that we can choose. So, like I said, one of the best ways I found of doing this is being present to the emotions, the feelings, and the needs that are in a conversation, not only for myself, but for other people, and looking underneath the words. A lot of times, the words are just a tragic expression of a call for love. Because so many of us don't even, like I said, know what we're needing in a moment. So as a practitioner of love, of the presence, it is much easier for me to stay centered and grounded in love so I can hear beyond the words that might be a bit crunchy or hard to hear. In my compassionate awareness, I can listen for the call for love beneath the words. And when we do that, we begin to open up the hearts of others because we're truly present for them. We're holding space for them in a way that has never been held before. So I have another powerful story for you guys about an African tribe. And in this particular tribe, when someone violates the rules or customs of the tribe, they call together all of the members, a gathering of all of the members of the tribe, and form one giant circle. And that particular person is in the middle of the circle. And then everyone tells that person everything that is good about them. All the stories of goodness and kindness and generosity that they have about them, of the ways that they love them, that they have done over their lifetime. And this ritual can last for several days. And when it is over, everyone celebrates as that person is feeling welcome into their tribe. They're celebrating them, welcoming them into their tribe again. So rather than, punishing people for doing something wrong, we're uplifting them, we're holding them in space, and we're loving them back to health, back to the goodness that they truly are. And I truly feel like when we begin to see that love that is within, that light is within, that is within each of us, it gets mirrored back. And then it's all love everywhere. And so people will then begin to do things because they want to, not because they think they will be punished, judged, or blamed or guilted if they don't do it. When we get in touch with the needs that are behind the judgments that make us feel angry or crunchy. So with that, let's go ahead and do a little exercise. And before we go into the exercise, I'm going to share in the chat a couple of documents. So let me pull up the chat real quick. And this is going to be a list of feelings and needs. Now you can feel free to open this up and have it on your screen while we go through this little exercise. So love always, like I said, it starts right where you are. It's always self-compassion first, self-empathy first. And when you are filled, you can begin to circulate this love and compassion. Like they say in the airplane, right? You always have to secure your mask first, take care of your mask first so that you are filled. So I'm going to invite you, if you feel open to doing this with us, just to close your eyes and imagine breathing in love from all around you, breathing it into your heart. You can see that love is a brilliant, bright light. As you continue to breathe it in, allowing this light to turn up, to become brighter and brighter with every breath. Feeling that light permeate your entire being, feeling it expanding throughout your body. And ever brighter still, moving beyond your body into the space around you. And with every breath, it becomes brighter and brighter, filling the home you're in, the building you're in, beyond the structure, into the town where you are, beyond the town, to the state, to the country, to the world. The light of love is all there is. Keep breathing in that love. And as you are immersed in this never-ending love, consider an uncomfortable or crunchy situation that might still be unresolved. Perhaps it's a disagreement or an argument of some sort. And don't become a part of it. You are simply a compassionate witness to this conversation. You are not involved in the conversation. Staying grounded in the heart of the present awareness with love. Remember to breathe. Breath can be our talisman back to the present moment, back to love. Now, as you witness yourself in this conversation, notice what feelings or emotions are present for you in that moment. Maybe it's body sensations. Again, just staying present in loving awareness, being a compassionate witness for yourself. You are not the feeling, you are just witnessing it. And be present with those emotions in a loving and caring way. You can even imagine holding those feelings in the way that a mother holds a baby, or as a beloved pet unconditionally loves their owner. Just be present. Breathe. Now we're going to move beyond those feelings and look at the needs that are present. Looking at what is alive in you. What is needed? Maybe something like safety, connection, understanding, love, harmony. Again, you can look at the list of needs that I provided in the chat. What needs are present in that moment beyond the feelings? What are you needing? Again, we're still holding yourself in love and kindness. Be gentle. Now that you're in touch with these needs, Notice your feelings. They may have shifted. Feel free to write them down. Be gentle with yourself and breathe. And when you feel ready, please open your eyes. And I invite you to write down those needs that were present for you so you can come back to them at a later time and look at how you might be able to meet those needs for yourself. When you do this, you're standing in your power. And then you will be able to communicate them more clearly to others. Rather than making demands, you can communicate from a position of connection with your needs, connection with your feelings, rather than communicating from the judgment of others. And so I invite you in the future to do this process with the other person who is present with you in that communication. Get in touch with their feelings. What needs do you think they might have underneath that? And that can begin to open up a deeper conversation beyond upset and get into compassion. So, with that, my time is complete for now. Thank you all so much for joining me and playing along. And we will open it up if anyone has any questions.
Marcella, that was so powerful. That was so powerful. So I'll let Laura ask questions if she has some.
I don't know that I necessarily have any questions, but it's definitely I love learning more about this and um, how important it is. It really can, especially using the needs and the feelings, can completely change the conversation, and it takes it just makes it so much more. It takes out the confrontation.
Mm,
So.
it really does. Yeah, and it opens it up to just that deeper level of connection, which I think all of us want and need. We just don't know how to express that. So, thank you, Laura.
Well, I
I
also want to just a quick comment about Elizabeth, when you were talking about the responsibility part and that we don't have to show up for the fights that we're invited to. And that for me completely resonated. And because I've gotten into it with my daughter before about, and this was about a lot of the protests and things that have gone on. And she got upset with me that I wasn't participating. And it made me think about it. And what you said, I loved, because I'm like, you know what? I don't, those aren't things I need to participate in. She can feel compelled to do that, and that's great. But for me, I felt like my participation was in other ways.
Mm,
And so when you said that, I'm like, yes, I totally agree with that.
Right. Good. 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 Good.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah. 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 And actually, that friend that I was telling you about, her words were kind. And also it was a little bit like, well, how come you're not doing anything? And I realized that I didn't that didn't feel loving, when I'm doing a whole lot. And so again, love, letting others voluntarily evolve, letting ourselves voluntarily evolve. You know, it goes, and I just did a book study on the let them theory. You know, perhaps what of might have been kind of her is to let me do me, you know. So, because I certainly wasn't going to expend any energy to say to her, you know, maybe you shouldn't be fighting against all these things you're fighting against. Maybe you should just only focus on what you should fight for, you know, because I don't know what she's called to do, but none of us knows what the other is called to do. I mean, there are days I don't know what Elizabeth's called to do, much less what Laura's supposed to be doing or what Marcella's supposed to be doing. So,
Right. And I think if we couple that with like, okay, what am I needing? What am I needing participation? Am I needing to be seen? Am I needing to matter? And what does that look like in my life? And being connected with that will help us get out of, at least will help me get out of my own judgment about myself or judgment that's being put on me, like you said, by your, as an example, your friend who is seemingly judging you for not doing this thing,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
And then it's an opportunity to say, okay, I see, you know, you have strong feelings about this, and let's have open a conversation.
yeah.
Such an opportunity. And I really love that let others evolve voluntarily, or let others voluntarily evolve.
Mhm, mhm,
That reminds me of a story, you know, that I was told. It's like, don't hold someone in petrification. Meaning, you know, maybe I had a friend and they were this certain way many years ago, and I haven't seen them for a long time, and I'm holding them in this light of they were this, that, and the other.
mhm.
And I'm not even allowing the opportunity that maybe they have changed.
Right.
And
That's
I'm
good.
showing up in judgment about them continually and continually. I'll notice when I do that with my husband. He's
Mhm.
done a certain thing over and over, and I keep judging him about it, and I'm not allowing him to change.
Yeah.
And for me, the nonviolent communication helps me look at, okay, why is he, or why am I, or, you know, what is the deeper need going on here to open a communication? So it's not like, you always do blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And then we're just stuck in this spiral,
Yeah.
right? Do I want to be happy or do I want to be right?
Uh-huh. Mhm, 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 mhm.
It's
And
powerful.
oftentimes, that's two different things.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
You
it
know, it's
is.
hard, it aligns, but sometimes we are having to make that decision.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. And also, you know, when we are, you know, having power struggles with whomever we're in relationship with, then it becomes this struggle. Where if instead, so instead of like attacking the person, if you're like, if it's somebody on your team or your spouse or your child or whoever, it's like, oh, here's the issue. Let's focus on the issue. And then all of a sudden, you've gone from butting heads in a power struggle to collaboration. So you're bringing them in, or I'm being brought in, and then together we're going to face this issue. Versus you always blah blah blah. You know that is like contentious, and just that power of switching that to just a little bit different facet of that, and how powerful that is. I know, Laura, based on our conversation yesterday, I know you use that technique many, many, many times. And also, Laura, I wanted to remind you that you know this is being recorded and it's going in the Diamond Vault. However, if we've got a few more minutes, if you wanted to share, if you were so inclined, I would love to hear if you're willing to share and be recorded, how what Marcella shared and what I shared intersect with the horizontal communication you were talking about, and maybe even if there are variations that horizontal communication addresses that Marcella and I didn't in our little short snippets.
Sure. And I think the timing of all this is really, uh, for me, it just feels so perfect.
Yes.
Because I met with Elizabeth yesterday, and on Thursday I'm going to a facilitator training for the Alternatives to Violence project or program, AVP, and AVP is uh, it's a it's a program that is largely conducted in the prisons to help inmates as they transition back to civilian life. And the objective is to not make that a revolving door for them, so that they can get out and learn how to communicate with other people. And because in the prisons, it's not peaceful communication, and it is, it, unfortunately, and I know there are some prison programs that are different, but for the most part, uh, the inmates aren't really treated as human beings. Um, there's not, they aren't given the compassion. And a lot of them, it's uh, if circumstances of, they've gone through abuse, so they don't really, a lot of them don't know anything else than what they were raised with. And so I did this program, and we were meeting with inmates. Half of the group were inmates that were in transitional housing, and seeing each other and connecting with each other on, really, it was a deep level. The questions we had to answer, and everything's confidential, so I can't really share a whole lot, but um, it was really so eye-opening on how similar we all are, that if we bothered to communicate and show each other some love and respect, how it's transformational. It's when a person feels connected, when they feel seen, when they feel heard, it is truly transformational. So I love that you both are working on this, because I would say for me, I have gotten involved with learning more about horizontal communication. That's a term from a gal named Diana Clements. She lives in South Africa, and she does a lot of programs with the alternative education groups that I belong to. Um, but learning about that led me to the nonviolent communication book, and it's just uh, I what I realize is, in our society, it's a very vertical type communication that we have. It's, you've got your CEO, and even in business, you have the CEO who tells, the directors who tell the managers and it's very top down. And if we could somehow change that so that everybody feels like they're on an equal playing ground, I think it would increase the happiness in the world. Um, rather than somebody feeling like they're less than. And I think if there's a way to change that and pivot that, I think we'd see remarkable changes throughout the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that, Laura. And I applaud you in taking this on and doing all the work that you're doing out in the world. I'm so grateful that it was divine right timing for you to show up here. And it's interesting that you brought up the prison thing. So I'll share a quick story about nonviolent communication and Dr. Rosenberg. He was going into prisons teaching nonviolent communication. And he tells this story about one time he was there, and there was this one prisoner who was, I think it was in Sweden, and the prisoner was just really angry and upset. And so Dr. Rosenberg, invited him to go through the process of what's causing the anger and what are the needs below that, and then the feelings. And it worked out to, he was very upset and angry at the administration there in the prison, because he had made a request and it had been 3 weeks and he hadn't heard anything, and he was getting all upset. Well, underneath that was his needs of getting into a program where he would be able to get the skills needed to be able to then go out into society and get a job, so that he didn't get then refunded back into, prison system. that wasn't being answered. So he was ultimately underneath the anger, he was scared and afraid, and those needs weren't being met. And so it was an opportunity for him to share what his true needs were, not from a place of anger, but from a heartfelt place of, I just really need this help, and to provide me with that safety and security in the future. And then once he came up with that, he got really, really sad in front of Dr. Rosenberg, and he said, well, what's going on? He's like, I just can't talk about it right now. And then like the next day, the prisoner came up to him and told him, he said, Dr. Rosenberg, I got really sad because I wish I would have learned this much sooner. If I had learned it much sooner, I wouldn't have killed my best friend. So it's just, we can change worlds with this stuff. And the fact that we have our own little community here, out here, showing up in whatever ways that we can to hold space for people, to show them that they are loved and that
Mhm.
there's a different way, and not be judgmental on them.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
thank you both.
Yeah. Yeah. What a powerful, powerful, powerful time. And for those of you that are watching this on replay, we are delighted and hope that you will reach out to Marcella and I and Laura, let us know when you're going to do your master class, because we'd love to support you as well. Marcella, do you want to share the slide? Marcella and I are of one mind. So there
Love
is.
always wins, baby.
Love always wins. So, yeah, for those of you, if you want to get in touch with Marcella, she's got her wonderful QR code there and her contact information, and there is mine. If you want to know more about Leading with Love and have an opportunity to get a complimentary mini Leading with Love session, then it's DrRoz.love/Leading with Love. So,
Yeah. And yeah, for me, if you guys want to, just have a practitioner session with myself, or we talk more about nonviolent communication, feel free to schedule a time with me. And also, just on nonviolent communication, you can find lots of wonderful videos and information just on YouTube. Just search nonviolent communication and Dr. Rosenberg. Phenomenal stuff that can be learned there as well. All right. Any last words?
Thank you
it's a
both.
great
This was
session.
fabulous.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And we look forward to doing more of these. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Spread the love, spread the joy, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.